Good evening. My name is Mario Sanchez, and I welcome you to Expresión Latina. This evening we have a specific type of presentation. We have Mr. Scott Peck. He's an author of a becoming to be very famous book. The name of the book is Omaha, America's Hometown. So, Scott, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Would you please let the audience know who you are, what you do, and so on?
Sure. My name is Scott Peck. I'm a professor at Bellevue University. I have been a professor here in Omaha for the last 10 years or so. And one of the things that I've done for my entire life is kind of curate stories about the city and things that I've known about and things that I've learned, and just kind of stored them and collected them over time. And I decided to write a book this last year. I'd had 3 surgeries on my leg, and I couldn't walk and I couldn't move. So I decided to sit with my laptop and I wrote a book, and what came out of it was Omaha, America's Hometown.
Excellent, very good. Scott, how long did it take you to come up with this book?
Well, I had these stories kind of collected in my head for 30 years or better, from the beginning to the end. And I talk a lot about in the entire metro area, from Council Bluffs to Omaha, even get out to Wahoo a little bit. So anybody in the metro area really has a connection to this book. To sit down and actually write the book took me about 3 months, and it was pretty perfect for me because I'd had surgery in August, and I was in a chair since till November. So I was able to write and have something to do while I could not walk. So it was a pretty good little time to do things. So.
Very good, excellent. Oops, I'm gonna have to put this back in here. So yes, we have the thing is, the main thing I would ask you is, what was the main reason? What happened? How did the whole thing started? Was it just one day you woke up and said, I'm gonna write a book, or something that inspired you?
Well, for me, what it had been is I was interested in writing. I've always been a writer. I've been writing Spanish language columns and history columns for different magazines and things like that for years and years. With Omaha, America's Hometown, I just got to hearing a lot of my students complain about nothing ever happened in Omaha. They were always bored with it. And I got to thinking, there's a lot of great history here and stuff that really connected to American history, and nobody knows about it. And it was one of the things that I felt like I wanted to be able to present something.
Could you tell us what are the most important things that happens, something that happened in this state, or at least in Omaha, that made a difference in the whole United States? Is there anything that you can talk about?
Hundreds of things. The
most important
the most important thing. Well, let's talk about how Donald Trump, Abraham Lincoln are alike, and how that all leads to Omaha.
Interesting.
Excellent. So Abraham Lincoln was the president in 1860. How could he be anything like Donald Trump? He was not the wild talker that Donald Trump was. He doesn't like to insult people like Donald Trump did. However, Abraham Lincoln liked technology. He loved technology. And what was the technology at the time but the telegraph? The telegraph was his thing. Now, early in his time as president, he didn't get a chance to use it all that much. But then they built a telegraph office directly next to the White House, and he started sending out telegraphs to his generals and to soldiers and everybody else that was fighting the Civil War, because he wanted the war done in his way and he wanted it over. So he kept doing this, and really, finally, his telegraph operator got burnt out. He almost had a nervous breakdown. So in 1863, he tapped out one last major message throughout the United States. It was a major message, really, 1863. It was the Emancipation Proclamation. This freed all of the slaves in the United States, and basically, if all black Americans in the United States are free because of the Emancipation Proclamation. This man decided, hey, it's time to move on. He quit the White House and he moved to Omaha. And he started the Omaha Bee newspaper. His name was Edward Rosewater. He was a Jewish man, and he started the Omaha Bee newspaper. Well, how was Abraham Lincoln like Donald Trump? Well, Abraham Lincoln used the telegraph. Donald Trump uses Twitter.
Yeah.
So it's the zeitgeist, the
that
technology of the time.
Similarity, yeah.
Absolutely. So that changed the entire country.
Is there anything else that you can say Trump is similar to Abraham Lincoln? Anything
Sure.
else?
They were both demagogues.
Okay.
They both. It's very funny.
All politicians are demagogues.
At some point, but everybody thinks of Abraham Lincoln. They only think of these grand speeches, the things that everybody loves and knows, the Gettysburg Address, those things that we know. But they don't think about the fact that Abraham Lincoln would tell one group earlier in the day how much of a Christian he was, and then later in the day how much religion was hokum.
Well, that is a similarity with Mr. Trump.
Yes.
Okay.
So they were very. You think Abraham Lincoln and Donald Trump are completely different? You'd be wrong. But they do have some differences in everybody's.
Just following this conversation, what's the similarity between Clinton and Trump?
It's in a lot of ways sexual harassment would be one that we could really kind of point out. But one of the other things that I think that they were both Bill Clinton and Donald Trump are also very similar in the fact that they are trying to be creative with American trade. And if right or wrong, they're both trying to do something.
Very good. Okay, let's go back to the theme, the main topic, which is your book.
Sure.
And I have a question here. What were the early influences on your writing, and how do they manifest in your work?
A lot of what I was thinking about when I was writing this is some of the great writers that I had always read were people that blended both history and culture together. People like Ernest Hemingway. They wrote simple sentences, simple phrases, and turned out great work. And he was probably one of the great influences on there. I always like Stephen Ambrose. If you've ever heard of Stephen Ambrose, he was a popular historian, and he wrote such books as Undaunted Courage, and he wrote several World War II books that really got people going, including some stuff that was turned into movies.
Yeah. Scott, did you have any influence from, let's see, CNN, Fox, MSNBC? Do you watch any of those?
Not at all. I read. If I am going to get news, I read it almost exclusively. I won't read. I don't watch cable news at all.
It's like it's digested.
Sure.
Yeah. In other words, it digested information from all.
Yeah, I like to have more information. When I don't like a 10-second soundbite to tell me what to think. I'd rather have what did that person really mean? Because then it gets to be unfair. I can't make a decision on things like that when it's kind of an unfair example.
Very good. So you definitely have read a lot from different authors to be able to get some information, okay?
Absolutely.
What are you trying to achieve with this book? That will be a question for you.
I want people in Omaha and in Nebraska and really everywhere to know that Omaha is not like a forgotten city. There's so much that happened here, and it's so much that involves them. If you love the movies, Omaha is the reason Hollywood got started. Yes.
Can you?
I can definitely extrapolate on that. For example, Gurdon Waddles, he was a banker in Omaha, and his house still exists over on 36th and Farnham. He was a banker, and he started the Trans-Mississippi Exposition. It was the World's Fair that happened here in Omaha. Put Omaha on the map in the 1890s. other things have happened since then. What happened at the fair? Well, he was had Buffalo Bill Cody start his Wild West show right here in Omaha, and they played it here. And that really kind of started off. This was a big showmanship. Then Gurdon Waddles, the next World's Fair, he headed up the World's Fair exposition for Nebraska at the 1908 World's Fair in St. Louis. This is when the movie camera had just been invented. He started making videos of Nebraska. So he really invented the concept of filmed commercials. And it was the film travel commercials, and he did this. So moving forward, King Kong was invented, or it was come up with by a man from Council Bluffs. Ernest Shedsack was the director of King Kong and a number of other large monkey movies, as I would call them, Mighty Joe Young, a number of others. But he also invented the concept of nature videos. So if you watch Discovery Channel and you're watching a jaguar attack a deer, this is Ernest Shedsack. He invented the concept. And he invented King Kong years later. Now, beyond that, Gurdon Waddles had moved to LA in 1910, just when the movie industry was just moving there as well. And he was a big funder of a lot of the early films that were being produced out there. Squaw Man, perhaps, and I'm not exactly sure, I haven't got all the information down, but perhaps Birth of a Nation. In fact, an Omaha actor was Abraham Lincoln in the movie A Birth of a Nation. So if you've actually seen that movie, you've seen an Omaha actor that actually made that film.
Yes, just going back to saying that Omaha is not well known for anything.
No.
Actually, it is well known for it. What else can people from Omaha or Nebraska can do to make this city and the state more popular in the United States? Is it something that we?
I think. First of all, we need to have pride in what we have, what's happened here. People know other places because of what they've heard of historically of them. Why do people know LA? Well, they know the movie industry. Why do they know Chicago? Well, they know a number of things about Chicago. Oprah was from there, or the
Gangsters.
Gangsters is another one.
Movies, sure.
Gangsters, movies, all of that. Meat packing, things like that. They know all about that, but they've forgotten what it is in Omaha, and Omaha is so much like this. So when we think about World War II, for example, Omaha was a big player in World War II and in the superpower status of the United States, but nobody thinks about it. They think of SAC and that was it, but there's so much more. And we need to have pride and express that to people outside of our community and within our community so our kids know too.
Very good. So what are the 3 core ideas of your book? 3.
The 3 core ideas are that Omaha has a significant American history. 2, that Omaha is a place of innovation and discovery. And 3, that it can be amazingly exciting if you look at it from the right angles.
Very good. So besides the history, what else do you think the readers they're going to learn from this? Is there something else there besides just telling the history of Omaha? I
think, well, this is not the history of Omaha, it's definitely the history of America.
Okay.
And it's the culture. What happens with history, learning about history, is you learn about the culture of the country. Omaha started rock and roll.
Yeah, with who was I think it was an African American.
No, but he helped with that.
Yeah,
the guy's name was Storrs. He was Todd Storrs. He invented the concept of Top 40 radio. Top 40 radio was invented in the early 50s. What is Top 40 radio? The top 40 songs of the day. Why is this so important when it comes to rock and roll and for African Americans or anybody else like that? It's important because Had it not been for top 40 radio, you couldn't get the advertisers to say it was okay. Now the advertisers could tell people that were offended by hearing black people on the radio that it's okay because it's the kids love it. It's the top 40 songs in the country, and it doesn't matter who's singing them.
So you're saying it most likely it helped also to desegregate.
It desegregated things, exactly. And that opened the doors to rock and roll, because what was rock and roll but a type of sped up blues music. And who started off singing sped up blues music but Elvis Presley. He made it acceptable.
So all those things probably also helped the civil rights.
Exactly.
The changes in the country. All those things were probably most like some kind of influence.
Exactly. And that flowed right into it, because right after, from the early 50s into the late 50s, you started having Omaha as a center of civil rights. So when we think of American culture, the things that make up American culture, it's centered here. We're in the heartland, and this was the heart of America.
So are you trying to tell me that Omaha is important?
Absolutely.
But it seems like someone is not selling Omaha to the world, to the States, and to the world.
I definitely
why
agree.
else can you do that? How can you advertise Omaha and its historical changes, leadership, and everything else?
Right, you can, and I think what's happened is they overlook it because it's easy to overlook. We don't have the flashy things. A lot of the things that have happened outside of Omaha were done by people from Omaha, but it didn't happen here, so people are easily forget it. They easily forget it. So when you think of Gurdon Wattles, people barely remember his name right now, but he was so important. He in his mansion still exists in Los Angeles, one of the great landmarks in LA, but it's in California, not Omaha, Nebraska. If we have one of his homes, we have one of his mansions, but we don't highlight it. Fred Astaire was from here. His house is in disrepair. It still exists, but it's in disrepair.
Well, let's see how many more minutes we have left. 10 more minutes.
Okay.
Well, there's a question that you knew that I was going to ask you. Where do Latinos fit in with the history of Omaha and the United States? Omaha.
Latinos are listed in Omaha since the very beginnings of Omaha.
Well, okay.
When did Omaha start? People think, well, yes, 1854. It was incorporated in 1854, but Latinos were in Omaha or in the area since at least 1812. They were the first Europeans, or European people of European descent in Omaha, and they were sent here to stop to help the United States win the War of 1812. So when you think of Latinos, you think of, hey, how did they affect American history and culture? A lot of people think, well, it's only in the last 20 years when they see the immigrant movement. It's only in the last 100 years when, with the Old West and things like that. But no, an individual named Manuel Lisa was sent here by the U.S. government from St. Louis to start a trading post and to pacify the Sioux Indians. They did not want the Sioux to be involved with the War of 1812. Okay, like the British in the past had used Indians to fight battles in the United States during the French and Indian War, but Manuel Lisa was able to pacify and made friends with the Sioux. Pretty difficult job. So Latinos are definitely represented, and Manuel Lisa, a Spaniard, was definitely one of those people that helped do it. And the other thing that you look at as far as Nebraska, the first languages that were spoken in Nebraska were French and Spanish.
And people don't know that.
No, they think, hey, you don't speak English, you got to move back to wherever you're from. I always look at it as kind of, it's an ignorant issue. Somebody has no idea that Spanish has been spoken here since the very beginnings. And then if we look back and, if we look at the large groups of Latino immigrants, they've been here since 1860. at least with the railroads, and then shortly after the meatpacking plants were opened, you had still more. So they lived around Brown Park, which is in South Omaha today.
Yeah. So what about the recent immigrants in South Omaha?
Sure.
And, when did you start here? Basically, you said that they were here way
yes.
before. But
yes, there was a specific group of immigrants here for the entire history. But the huge wave that we see now really didn't start till the late 90s with NAFTA. When NAFTA was enacted, it bankrupted the Mexican farming industry and devalued the Mexican currency. In the United States, there was some aid that was offered. The Mexican government took it. It actually made problems worse for a lot of the run-of-the-mill, the regular Mexicans. The people that were living in the cities, it was a little better for them. But those people that were living in rural areas were very affected, and a lot of them came here because there was no other opportunity.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. Probably the immigration from Mexico was due to that.
Absolutely,
because there was no jobs, and they used to grow their own fields and everything else. So
sure.
Once that is completely blocked, not blocked directly, but indirectly.
Sure.
So they start looking to other places to come to work. And so that was the United States.
Absolutely. Give you an example of how bad it was for Mexicans. In Mexico, pork is probably the primary meat in Mexico. And overnight, after the Mexican ag industry collapsed, the imports of pork from the United States increased by 8,000%.
Wow.
So basically they just destroyed the ag industry. Now they got some manufacturing, but it has not recuperated everything.
Yeah. So Scott, do you have any upcoming projects? You want to write more books, maybe a movie or something?
Yeah.
What are your ideas?
I am working on a couple of things. I have a nonprofit. It is a nonprofit that is it's Heartland History Tours, and it is tours of Omaha. A lot of the locations that I talk about in this book are here. I'm also writing another book that is about Omaha's connection to Hollywood, how Omaha started Hollywood, and all of the things that we know of and think of today as Hollywood, and how this is how they really got started here in Omaha and in the metro and in Nebraska overall. So those are the next things that I'm working on, and definitely look for that to be coming out.
Very good. Interesting. My son graduated. Oh, that's a good question. They're telling me where can they buy this book?
So if you want it right away, you don't want to wait for it, you can get it at the Bookworm Bookstore, which is on 90th and Center. Bookworm Bookstore on 90th and Center. You can get this, and they have hard copies there. There's also the Our Bookstore, which is in the Old Market. Is carrying this book. You can also get this online on Amazon.com. Just go to Amazon and punch in Omaha, America's hometown, and this will punch right up.
Excellent.
So you'll be able to get it. You can pick it up there. And like I say, if you want it signed, give me a call or email me at omahatours@gmail.com.
Very good. Interesting. So anything else would you like to let us know about your books, and why? I mean, the question is, why do people should buy this book? There's so many, right? There's so many books.
People need to buy this book because you don't know your own hometown, and really nobody does. When we think about this, there's so many amazing things that have happened and come from Omaha. For example, Mount Rushmore was carved by a man from Omaha. The Higgins boat, the boat that Dwight Eisenhower said won World War II for the United States, was invented by an Omaha man. Omaha is the place where the Ford Mustang was invented, a number of other things. And there's so much here that you just don't know about, and you don't know your own hometown until you read Omaha, America's Hometown.
Very good. Can you tell us, I think you're saying that you're gonna write another book.
Yes,
right?
I am.
Did you already start it?
I have already started it, and it's about Omaha's connection to the movie industry and how that's been started.
So how is it? I mean, why did you do that? I mean, what was the reason?
Because
we don't have very much history of movie making here, do we?
We do have some really interesting things that have happened here. I'll give you an example. The Lincoln Motion Picture Company was founded here. This is the first all-black movie motion picture company in the United States. Now, this gentleman started this, and this was so important because the concept still lives with us today. So when you think of Will Smith, he got his start in all black things. What do you call it? Bill Cosby was all black productions, things like that. That concept really started right here. Now, to go on with that, the gentleman that started that was named Noble Johnson, and he was in another movie, King Kong. He was in King Kong. So he was an actor in the movie King Kong. So it's all connected back to Omaha. Now, movie making didn't actually happen in Omaha, but Omaha people went to Los Angeles. A couple of actually one brother from Wahoo started things out in LA. They were producers in LA, and they ran 20th Century Fox. Their name escapes me, but they were huge producers in the up until the 1990s. Made Titanic, a number of other films like that. And when you go up to Tilden, Nebraska, this is where losing my mind. The man that invented Scientology, the Church of Scientology, was just huge in LA, which connects to all of the famous movie stars from Nebraska, from Tilden, Nebraska. So we have a grand history of it, and nobody knows about it.
Well, very good. Thank you very much, Scott, for letting us know about this book. It's interesting, and I'm going to read it.
Thank you so much.
There's so much stuff that I didn't even know, that the things that you said, didn't make sense at all. Hold it.
Yeah.
Why Spanish and French was the first language here? Nobody didn't know that.
Absolutely.
So just that kind of information.
Sure.
So with that, we'd like to appreciate Scott's presence, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.